So we just got AJ Dybantsa versus Darryn Peterson, where the Wizards did defeat the Jazz 92 points to 88, and both guys, I would say, had pretty good games, whereas on the hand of AJ Dybantsa, I think he had a great game, and I know that this is just the Summer League. I want to say before we do start to overreact and make big opinions and things like that, but AJ Dybantsa showed up when I think that he needed to the most, and the reason why I think that it was important for AJ Dybantsa to show up and put on a strong performance was because we had just seen Darryn Peterson come off two back-to-back really good performances in the Summer League before Vegas, so I do think that it was important for Dybantsa to come out and really make a big statement. Now, the thing about Dybantsa is, despite him getting 27 points, a lot of those points did come from the free throw line, especially early on, because at the end of the day, he did end 7 of 18 from shooting, but I think at one point, he was about 4 for 12, so he did start to really increase that efficiency towards the end. But I do think there is a combination of factors for this pretty poor field goal percentage of only 38.9% overall, with going 0-5 from 3. And that is what people were a little bit concerned about him coming into the NBA, coming in through the draft, was the shot selection for AJ Dybantsa does need to improve a little bit. And the three-point concerns are still there as well. I think he shot 33% from the three-point line in college. He did only go 0 for 5, so he did not make a 3 in this game, but still, he was getting attacked by the Jazz. This was a very physical game. AJ Dybantsa was handling the ball a lot. He was getting double-teamed a lot, and through that, he had to score through contact. A lot of his big shots were reverse layups. A lot of his shots were and ones even as well, but he was also doing a lot of working to get to the free throw line as well. He did actually fall over multiple times. I'm not saying he was flopping by any means, but he was on the ground a lot in this game due to the fact that the Jazz were double teaming him, and he was still trying to put these shots up through the context. Now, on the other hand, you can actually look at Trey Johnson, of course, someone who has spent a whole year in the NBA. He was able to find a lot of success in this game, of course, because AJ Dybantsa was, on one hand, drawing a lot of attention, but also Trey Johnson also showed, in my opinion, just the experience that he has had in the NBA now against professional players. He went 11 for 20 from the field, and I think he had a good game. I will also highlight Will Riley from the Wizards also had a good game. Now, initially, he wasn't really going too well, but in the fourth quarter, I thought he really showed up. He hit a massive 3. That was quite important because the game really started to get quite close. It was a 2-point or a 4-point game at one point in the third and fourth quarter. And at the first quarter, I think the Wizards had a 17-point lead. That is how strong they started. And AJ was actually a pretty big part of them starting very strong. So I think that AJ Dybantsa showed up today. He did have the better performance than Darryn Peterson. I do think that is something that he needed to show, because we were seeing Darryn Peterson absolutely ball out in his first 2 games. So I was very, very happy to see that AJ Dybantsa sort of secured himself as one of the better picks, of course, in the draft, because we had seen Peterson have his own success. Now, on one hand, I do want to say a couple of things. AJ Dybantsa handled the ball a lot in this game. It was also interesting to see Trey Johnson handle the ball a lot, and also Will Riley. I do wonder how AJ Dybantsa is going to look alongside Trae Young, because the thing about Dybantsa is he's not an off-ball player. He very much is on-ball. He needs to handle the ball a lot. And I do wonder how Trae Young is going to fit into this, because Trae Young, of course, needs to handle the ball. But I think that Trae Young is honestly going to help Dybantsa's development in this way, because I think that's going to make AJ Dybantsa a better off-ball shooter. Trae Young is one of the best. Maybe he could be the best, potentially, point guards at setting up his players on his team for open looks, and I think that could help AJ Dybantsa. Another thing as well, before I do start to talk about Darryn Peterson's game, he also had only 1 personal foul in the game, and that was in the fourth quarter, so he nearly went the entire game without any fouls from him, which was great. And then all of his misses, Trey Johnson actually mentioned this, I think, at halftime in the interview. He was missing short. You know, the shot that didn't have a lot of arc on it. It was very low. I think nearly every single miss that he had, even from the 2 and the 3, were short. So maybe just with the time and development, maybe that shot just needs to be arced a bit higher so he can put a bit more power on it and not be missing short. Now I'm going to talk about Darryn Peterson. Of course, Darryn Peterson, on paper, did have a much worse game, I would say, but he did actually start to really pick up towards the end of the game. even though you do see that he went 6 of 18 from the field, he actually was, I believe, 4 of 15 at one point, so he went 2 of 3 to end the game. He hit a big 3 at the very end of the game, even though the game was lost at that point, and he did have 9 personal fouls, and a few of these really could have been avoided, man, especially in the fourth quarter when he pushed one of the opponent players. It was actually a review to potentially be a flagrant foul. I don't really like that. You know, this is the summer league. This isn't the NBA. This isn't the playoffs. There's not really that much at stake, so I do worry that, you know, he might have shown a little bit too much frustration, and especially when the stakes get a bit higher, when the pressure builds up a little bit higher, I'm a little bit interested to see how that could go for Darryn Peterson. But the thing about Peterson was he just started really slow. Both AJ and Peterson did, to be fair, but he really was not making his threes. He did end 2 for 7 though, and he did also make it to the free throw line consistently. But the thing about Peterson was he was still creating his own shots, and he was still getting good shots. The thing about AJ and him was I think that Darryn Peterson was creating a lot better shots for himself than AJ. AJ was having to deal with a lot of defenders, and he was making pretty poor shot selection in my opinion. But on the other hand, Peterson, the shot just wasn't falling, even though he was still having a pretty good game, I would say. The assist numbers for Peterson weren't too high. Once again, this was a concern about Peterson. You know, was he going to play the point guard position for the Jazz? Probably not, because of course you've got Keontae George there, but still, you know, the playmaking for Peterson has been a concern. He's had his moments getting the assists in the previous games. This game, he did only end up with 3 assists. But I will say it's because the guys he were passing to were not making their shots. No one really for the Jazz had a good game necessarily, except for Cody Williams. Had a pretty good game, 6 for 12 from the field. He did miss a little bit to start with too. That's a pretty big theme about the game, was there were a lot of misses early. But yeah, I did just want to kind of highlight that this was the number 1 versus number 2 pick here, and I do think that both guys had good games, even though I think that AJ Dybantsa had a much better game overall. So I do think that was worth noting, and that is just kind of my review of the game, my opinion of the game, and I am excited to see how both guys do start to look going forward, because I think that they've got pretty good landing zones to develop. You know, you got AJ Dybantsa. Trae Young is going to help him develop a lot. Trae Young's going to get AJ Dybantsa open shots to develop that 3 ball, even if he is very inefficient. Darryn Peterson, that shooting guard role, I think for him is going to be open on the Jazz. You can move Larry Markkinen out to the small forward, maybe even the power forward position. I really like Larry Markkinen. I think that these are going to be very fun teams to watch, both guys. And also you got Anthony Davis on the Wizards too. That's kind of a sneaky contender team that I think a lot of people are dismissing. You know, I think Alex Sarr's going to play center. Anthony Davis wants to play power forward. And that's what's going to happen there. I do want to actually mention as well, Maurice Johnson Jr. had a massive game, the number 9 pick for the Mavericks, 27 points for him in his debut. I just wasn't going to talk about it because this was the main sort of mention of the game. Sergio De La Rey had a very, very inefficient game. Unfortunately for him, he was picked later on in the draft though. And yeah, that's kind of all I really wanted to talk about. Yaxel Lindenberg, another big game, but he's older, so you can typically expect these older prospects to have good initial starts. It's just like, what's his ceiling going to be? Is he going to reach that ceiling sooner than everyone else? Because AJ Dybantsa and Darryn Peterson are both very young players. But that was my thoughts on day 1 of Summer League. At the time of me recording, the Kings versus Clippers hasn't started yet, but I'm really excited for that too, because I've got no idea how good Keaton Wagler is going to be, because he really rose to number 5 in his college career. And then on top of that, you guys already know, I really like Darius Acuff Jr. I think he's going to be so fun to watch. I'm not a fan of the Kings, but I am a fan of Darius Acuff Jr., and because of him, I am going to watch a lot of Kings games this year. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know what you think about Artem NBA in general, because of course I'm still getting used to talking about the NBA.